Hey everyone, it's Liz, if you still remember me. I finally am getting around to doing this video. You may have noticed my absence on YouTube. That's because, as the title of this video is correct, I have been in hospital for 7 weeks. Like nearly 2 months. That's insane. I went in 4 days after my birthday in the summer, and I've come out mid-October and people are asking me about Christmas. And it seems so weird. I'm just in awe. I've just got the new Samsung S10 and this video quality is amazing. So I'm just staring and the glare is like amazingly not there, hardly. So, excuse my scruffy appearance. This is what hospital does to you. It gives you grey hair. I need to recolour my hair. I need to get it cut. Those of you that have followed my journey before I went in hospital will know. Basically the day before my birthday, I've been having a numb foot since the beginning of August, and I don't know if I've vlogged about that. But the day before my birthday, I stood on a plug, really excruciating, because I couldn't feel my foot anymore. And I stood straight on it and bent the plug as it went in my foot. It was the most horrific injury. And I made a video about it, but I forgot to post it. So you don't really know any of the story. Since the beginning of August, I started walking on the side of my foot because my big toe, the ball of my foot as well, felt very tight and couldn't put it flat on the floor. And then it went numb halfway up my foot, on my left foot. And then I stood on the plug. So I ended up walking on my heel because the rest of my foot I couldn't feel, and where I'd stood on the plug hurt. And for the whole week of that week, I had such terrible aching in my back, and I thought, oh no, it's my usual slip disc aching. And then on the Saturday, I woke up in the morning and I couldn't move. I've had slip disc for like 10 years, but it flares up, and I haven't had a flare in 4 years, or is it 5 years? No, 5 years. It's the year I moved in here. And I was in hospital then for like 2 weeks for pain relief and rehab and all that. So I ended up having to call an ambulance because I couldn't actually sit up or do anything. I was in so much pain that I just wanted to die. The only way they could actually get me up was with lots of Entonox and slid me off the bed on a pat slide, which has never happened before. And I was really worried because I'm quite heavy. And yeah, just like, so I went into hospital, A&E, my local one. And they could see how much pain I was in, because every time they tried to move me, I would scream my head off. And then they sent me for an MRI, and they admitted me because they wanted to rule out serious stuff like, I don't know, but like any more damage to my back, I think, but also something called cauda equina, and that was ruled out within 24 hours, so that was good, because if it was that, they need to operate immediately. So I was there in a ward, like a surgical ward, for 2 weeks, whilst they got my pain under control. I had to go back on tramadol, unfortunately, and on Oromorph, which actually didn't do too much damage to my stomach. I wasn't too constipated. And so anyway, I was there, and over the course of the 2 weeks, my right foot started going tingling in my toes, shooting pains, twitching, which is what happened to the left foot, and the whole right foot went numb too. So I told them this, but they were like, well, your slip disc is pushing on the nerves in your back on the left side, so that's the cause. And I was like, okay, fine. But towards the end of those 2 weeks, a nurse was helping me wash because I literally could hardly move. And I noticed that I couldn't feel her washing my legs up into my knees. It was like someone had injected local anaesthetic into my legs. Like, I knew they were there and I could kind of move them, but I couldn't feel when you touch the skin. There was like no feeling. So they still put it down to my back, and I was speaking to my cousin, and she's got transverse myelitis, and that's something where you get an infection in your spinal cord and you can get nerve damage. And she lost the feeling in her legs, feet, and arms, and problems with bladder and bowels and stuff. So I was thinking, oh my god, what if it's that? Because it's like spreading. I wasn't sure, and then I thought it could be Guillain-Barré syndrome because that's similar. Or I thought it could be MS, but no one seemed to know, and no one seemed to really want to look into it because the local hospital is very small and has literally zero experience with spinal injuries and all this. Basically, after 2 weeks, I asked if I could be transferred to Addenbrooke's because that's where all my doctors are. My pain doctors are there. They have spinal experts, have neurologists, because obviously if you lose feeling, it's a neurological issue. But they refused. And so Addenbrooke's asked for an MRI of my entire spine, which was done. And that came back the same as, like, nothing new, just the lumbar thing, the slip disc. And then I got moved into another ward because I was considered like not urgent. I was in a bay on my own. There were like 6 beds or 5 beds, and it was just me. And that was for 2 weeks as well. While I was there, eventually they sent me to Addenbrooke's for some nerve conduction studies on my legs because of the lack of movement and feeling. And they came back kind of semi-normal, but they weren't completely normal, and they weren't really worryingly abnormal. They were right in the middle. And they said that my muscles aren't reacting to the, like, when they say squeeze your hand, I was squeezing my hand, but nothing was happening. But my nerves were all working, so they weren't really concerned about that. So they said, oh, it's just going to be physio. And I went for the 2 weeks. So I had 1 week of physio in the other ward, and then I had a week in the new ward with no physio. So I had 2 whole weeks with no physio. I was mobilising with a frame and using a commode at the side of the bed, and I was washing in bed. So I was literally not getting out of bed, using my muscles at all. The only benefits of that hospital were that I had super fast Wi-Fi, so I could keep entertained, and free TV, which is actually the only benefits of that hospital. Because every doctor that eventually did come to see me, I'd see a doctor like once a week, and they'd say, oh, you're not seeing a doctor every day because we don't have the specialists here. So I kept asking and asking, can you transfer me? And they were like, no, unless you're in acute emergency, we can't transfer you. So it got to the stage at the end of that stay that a doctor said, well, you need to be under neurologists, and you need to be under spinal doctors, and you need this and that, but we can't provide that. So we're going to send you home, and then your GP has to refer you to Addenbrooke's. And I was like, at that stage, I was like, how are you sending me home when I can't walk? I can't do anything for myself. And their solution was to put a commode in the living room where I am now, and basically use that in the day, not be able to empty it, have no carers, and just like sit here like a lemon. And that would have been horrific. So towards the end of my stay, I started feeling really sick. I was sick one morning, which is really unlike me, and I had diarrhea and didn't think anything of it. And then the Monday came round, and I was like, I've had enough. So we had this big long thing, which I won't go into because I'm going to be taking legal action over the hospital, because basically they made me worse, because although they were treating the back, I became completely unable to walk, and I knew there was something more to it, as there always is with chronic illness. And I wasn't the standard, like, oh, you have back pain and this is the cause. Like, I have many different things. So I ended up self-discharging myself from the hospital, and I got my husband and my parents to take me to Addenbrooke's. And of course, the hospital I was at were like, oh, there's no way they'll take you, and they can't help you, and blah, blah, blah. And they were really just not very helpful. And it was a battle getting through A&E. I had a whole terrible experience, which I'll do another video on about that. But once I did get through there, I went into the clinical decisions unit, and the entire night I felt sick. I had diarrhea. I was really not well. But the following day, I had probably about 8 doctors seeing me. I had a neurologist who couldn't believe how long I'd been left. she's like, oh, I'm assuming you've had this test. I'm assuming they've told you about this. And I was like, none of it. I was like, I haven't been told anything. So she had a plan. She said that they might not be able to find what's caused it, but I should get all the feeling back in my legs. Because at this stage I had no feeling from the knees down in both legs. And so my back was a lot better by this time. And so then I was like, okay. And then I saw doctors, nurses, had blood tests, 2 lots of blood tests. I saw a physio. I was like inundated with people. I had bladder scans, all sorts of stuff. But I felt really unwell. So luckily, because Adam Brooks is a very good hospital, because I had diarrhea and nausea and some vomiting, they wanted me in a side room. So they moved me to a ward, which I found out was an infection and inflammation ward. And the whole ward, every single, there's no bays, they're all side rooms. There's 22 side rooms. And I didn't really know what was wrong with me, but I thought, oh, it's just because I've got diarrhea. But obviously I wasn't mobile, so I had a commode next to my bed with raging diarrhea, which is not the best. Oh, excuse me. And basically they did blood tests every day and stool samples every day, and eventually told me I had C. difficile, which is a really serious infection in your bowels. And I think I must have picked it up at the other hospital because I had the symptoms like a week before they diagnosed the C. diff, and 2 other people in the ward I was on in the other hospital also had the same symptoms, but the other hospital didn't pick up on it, so that's really bad. And so I was kept in isolation for 3 weeks, which is why it was 7 weeks in total, because the first week they still did. The good thing is they still came every day to do physio, and with their encouragement I was doing so much physio. Even though I felt horrific, I was like, I need to get some mobility back. Even just sitting on the edge of the bed, moving my legs, trying to move my feet, even though there's no feeling there. And I was on antibiotics for the C. diff for a week, and then I had 3 days off them, and it came straight back, which they warned me probably would happen. So then they put me on different antibiotics, and after about 5 days I felt better. So they gave me another 5 days, and I just didn't feel right. But eventually, in the last week I was there, the diarrhea eased off, the nausea eased off. I was eating again. I've lost a stone since I've been in there, and the nausea is pretty much gone. The horrific thing I found was they kept trying different meds on me, and I kept trying to say that I'm so sensitive to medication, but they didn't really get that. So I wanted to come off my metrazapine, which is for my depression, because it had made me gain a lot of weight. And so they switched me to sertraline, and I was having terrible nightmares, waking in the night feeling shaky, and so they changed me. I said I didn't like it, and so they changed me to something called paroxetine. That was the worst mistake ever, because I had, within 12 hours, I felt like I was going to go mad. Well, I was going mad. I was shaking, I was twitching, I couldn't sit still, I felt like I wanted to kill myself, literally the worst reaction, and I think it was serotonin syndrome. So I had that to deal with as well. And then I went back to the sertraline, and I was fine. I mean, I'm still getting nightmares because I'm still on it, and I'm still not sleeping great, but in the day I feel fine. And it's until my mood, because I was doing so well mentally before I went into hospital. As you know, I was thinking about coming off my antidepressants. I'd nearly finished all my sessions with Mind, but this has been the most traumatizing hospital stay ever. It's the longest, but obviously the amount of trauma that the first hospital caused me is part of the reason I'll be taking legal action, because it was hard, because they admitted they couldn't treat me, but they refused to transfer me to somewhere that could. And that is just wrong. Even the doctor was so ignorant. He said, well, you should have got an ambulance to Adam Brooks. I was like, that's not how it works where I live. it's a postcode lottery, and you can't choose where you go. You just have to go to your nearest hospital. I got my MP involved. He actually replied. He escalated my complaint to the CEO of the hospital, and that was really good. I'm thinking of getting him involved again. Adam Brooks, I can't fault them. They would, even like the cleaner would come in every day and clean with chlorine bleach, because that's what we have to do with C. diff. But honestly, I felt like death. I mean, if anyone has ever had C. diff, you feel like someone's taken your insides out, stomped all over them and put them back in. And the pain is horrific in your stomach, and you feel constantly sick. For the first week, I was on IV paracetamol, IV anti-nausea, I was on fluids, I couldn't eat or drink. I thought I was going to die. And luckily, every single day I saw a doctor, gastro doctor. They were looking after me. They're amazing. They were so friendly. The hardest thing for me was being stuck in a side room for 3 weeks, because I had visitors that I was allowing my husband and my parents to come, but they had to wear gloves and aprons, and I couldn't hug anyone, and that was really damaging to my mental health. But over that time, because I had so much time, when I started feeling better, I got my frame, which I'm in the middle of pimping up now. I don't know if you can see, but I'm pimping up with purple tape, and I've changed the ferrules, which are now black. But I was starting to walk on my own with the frame up and down the room, and I walked and walked and eventually could stand up without the frame. And I'm at the stage now where I still need the frame. I still have no feeling back in my legs or feet, but I'm getting more used to it, and my muscles are getting really strong, stronger than before I even got ill. And I'm able to sometimes get up without the frame and walk around a little bit, but I've got to be really careful. And the frame goes everywhere with me at the moment, to help me balance. And I'm using my wheelchair for everything else. And the next few months are going to be really telling, because I'm starting my sessions with Mind again in a week, which will be really helpful. The hospital did provide me with psychological support, because I'm facing the fact that I might not be able to drive for a long time. I'm looking into the possibility of getting... Mo wants to come and say hello. Hello, Mo. You're going to be in the video. You say hello. Hello. Yeah, I'm trying to film. Okay. Mo's going to be in the video. So yeah, I'm looking at getting hand controls for my van. I was going to call it a car, but it's not. It's a van. It's not a Motability one, but it's a second-hand one. So the only thing is, my husband my husband uses the van, and at the moment he's ferrying me around. So he's going to have to get used to using the hand controls. And I also need to see what they can do, because at the moment I drive my wheelchair up the ramp into the back of the car, and then I have to climb over the back seat and then walk around to the back of the car and put the ramp up and shut the boot. And without my frame, I'm not safe to do that on uneven ground. So I'm going to need some kind of remote control for my boot and ramp. But if Wales win the rugby, the World Cup, then I am sorted, because I put money on back at the beginning of this year for Wales to win the Six Nations and the World Cup, and they're on track for that. So that will pay for my hand controls. Oh, and while I was in Addenbrooke's, I came across a post on my Sjogren's support group of a lady whose brother had exactly the same symptoms as me. And he eventually was diagnosed with transverse myelitis, but I thought, is this a Sjogren's thing? So I Googled numbness in legs Sjogren's, and it came up with small fibre neuropathy. And I thought, well, I shall write to the Sjogren's doctor I saw in Swindon. She is private, but I thought maybe quick email she might respond to. And she did within like 20 minutes. And she wrote a letter that I was able to show the hospital to say that, and I Googled it afterwards, small fibre neuropathy happens because of various reasons, but there's a list of illnesses that cause it, and one of them is Sjogren's. And a lot of people since have said EDS does too. So I've got both. So I'm like in the more likely to get these things type thing. And I thought having the Sjogren's, that was it. But this, obviously, I'm not done. Somebody up there really hates me. Um, so yeah, I don't really know what is going to happen. But I haven't had the feeling back in 7 weeks, so I'm kind of preparing myself to not have the feeling back. It's a really odd feeling because, like, last night I was walking just a few steps in the bedroom and I was like, oh, something feels weird. I looked down and my big toe just bent right back because I'd actually stood on it on the wrong way. And I didn't feel it. I just felt something weird and it didn't hurt. And I thought, my God, I could break a bone. I can burn myself. I can probably stand on another plug without realizing. Um, so it was really, it's a huge life change. And also with the C. diff, I'm still on antibiotics. It's vancomycin, specifically for bacterial infections. I'm taking it till Monday and then I have to come off it. And then it's really telling because then I could get the C. diff back, especially if my stomach's not adjusted properly. And if that happens, they might be able to treat it at home, but I'm worried that I'll have to go back because when I was in hospital, that's the last thing I forgot to tell you, is when the C. diff came back for the second time, the doctor was saying that if it didn't work and I still had it, they'd have to do a fecal transplant, which is quite new in the UK. It's only been around for a few years. That there's two ways of doing it. One is nasal gastric tube, and they put it down into your stomach. But no, I like my experience of things like that, like endoscopies. I just vomit the whole way through, and it comes back. So, what a fecal transplant is as gross as it sounds. They take someone donates their poo, and that again gets put in a machine, and it's not like it's checked for infections, it's checked for bacteria. It's a long process, and not like just they put it straight back in, and it's in liquid form. So then they do a colonoscopy, and they put the colonoscopy tube all the way in as far as it goes, and then they slowly release the donor poo, and that's supposed to then change the gut bacteria back to normal. And that's like a last resort. And I'm glad they didn't end up needing to do that, but that is a possibility. So I'm making the most of being at home just in case it comes back and I have to go back to hospital. But if it does, um, well, I've got a new phone and I've got data, so I can watch stuff. And I've just noticed I'm breaking out in like a rash thing, so that's a bit weird. Um, but anyway, yeah, the downside of being in isolation was that the Wi-Fi worked, but you couldn't get on Netflix or YouTube. You couldn't watch telly. The TV there was expensive. It was like £6 a day. And when you're in isolation, you have nothing else to do. I can't read books. I'm just like meh. So yeah, it was boring. And being at home, having these cats back as well, it just makes you feel so much better. Even yesterday when I felt really ill, I was like, I don't feel as bad as in hospital. So my biggest hurdle really is to get rid of this C. diff for good. The only trouble is that if in the next year or few years that I get another infection somewhere else and I need antibiotics, the antibiotics I'll take are likely to reactivate the C. diff. So it's just not good. It's a bit like when people have central lines and you get sepsis and you're prone to it because of the central line. It's like, it's like the infection is there and it's very hard to get rid of. It's like the gastro doctor said it's like a weed and it just keeps growing and growing, and then you cut it right back and then it keeps growing. And my stomach is never that well behaved, as you might know if you watch this enough. So I'm not sure, but I will keep you updated. Sorry for this quite long update, but 7 weeks in hospital is a really long time and I had a lot to update you with. So hopefully I shall keep doing some updates, and I shall do the story of the A&E thing because that is like, you're not going to believe it at all. It's the most horrific thing. And actually we've put an official complaint in for that too because it's, yeah. Anyway, I hope you're all good. Thank you so much for the extra subscribers while I've been gone. Please, if you like the video, even though it's not a nice topic to talk about, that would massively help me. Leave a comment, any comments, but especially if you've had C. diff, to know how you coped, or if you've got small fibromyopathy or something, that would be good to hear from people. And I shall do another video really soon. Bye.